I'm loose. I said I'm loose, baby.
And we're live and we're here. What's up, neighbors? Thanks for coming here today and joining us on, I never have this ready, April 13th. It's the week before Easter. Easter's next week.
I'm so excited.
I'm sure you are.
I've already planted Easter eggs all around the halfway house with little, Suboxone, methadone. No, nothing illegal.
No, okay. Only maintenance drugs.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Cannabis qualify?
No, definitely not.
All right, we got Evelyn here today. What's up, Evelyn?
What's up?
How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you for coming to enjoy and be a part of our humble little experiment here that we're doing. Yeah.
We need a name for the room so we could say, come to the neighbor nest. Yeah, we got Evelyn nest. Or something like that.
Do you have any ideas? We ask.
I don't know. It's kind of psychedelic in here.
We'll ask you again at the end of the show. Base it off the vibe you get.
The den of depravity.
The den. Oh.
So, the reason we're doing this, that's pretty weird. The reason we're doing this is we want to get to know people. And so far, our experience has been that when we sit in a room and we sort of force ourselves to talk about a specific subject, we really have a lot of fun. And we get to know a lot about you, right? The person that visits. We get to know a little more than we'd like about Tony. And I just get to listen and learn, and people make me watch really weird movies. And
you're welcome.
You picked a super fucking weird movie, by the way.
I know.
He was so excited.
It's an incredible choice. This movie it's about addiction. It's about trauma bonding. It's about codependency. It's about gynecology. It's what more could you want?
Twincest,
Twincest for sure.
Big time. I mean, basically rape, right?
Hey.
I mean, isn't that what Beverly's doing?
You're getting ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
yes,
it's
actually,
all in
though,
there.
yes,
it's all there. Yeah.
There's definitely some rape because they're
don't
consenting to one twin and the other one's
that was my point.
Yeah.
And my wife took her a second when I said that, and I was like, well, think about it. And she was like, well, yeah. Yeah, Teresa was a little bit, we're still on the fence about it, but that happens with a lot of these movies. So it's a Cronenberg, 1988.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes,
okay.
88.
Called Dead Ringers. And so if you search Dead Ringers, there's something else that comes up. There was a show. Mm-hmm. Is that affiliated? Is that like the same kind of idea?
Yeah, it's a remake. It's more recent, played by female leads and stuff.
Rachel Weisz. I've been meaning to check it out.
So Cronenberg, I was talking to him about this earlier. I have a complicated relationship with pretty much every film he's ever made, short of Eastern Promises, is that while I'm watching it, I'm super checked out. I'm not like a big subtext person. I'm pretty like dumb and I like being entertained or whatever. But I always grow to love them. Like Scanners is ultimately one of my favorite movies of that like weird genre. And so I'm getting there with this one, but I did just watch it. So it takes a lot of thinking. It deals with a lot of really fucking weird subjects.
It's really,
Which is why I think you like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also it's very funny and well put together.
So the funny part missed me.
There are a lot of
coffee freaks.
It starts off on such a great note.
So why do you love this movie? When did you first watch it?
Well, so I'm a women's health nurse practitioner and a midwife. So I'm in the field of gynecology.
Yeah.
I'm also a huge horror nerd, a huge horror fan. So I go to conventions. I am all about it. I've got memorabilia. I'm huge nerd. I mean, I'm wearing a Jason and Michael shirt right now.
Duncan shirt. There you go.
It's just, I love it. And so it kind of, I don't know. This one's really weird though, because it's not really horror, but but there's actually like when you really get down to the subject matter, it's scarier than most of the actual horror movies out there. Yeah. So the deep psychological
that was
burns with it.
Teresa's beef with it was, as we thought it was a horror movie. I knew it was Cronenberg, so it probably wasn't like a typical horror movie.
Yeah.
But she was expecting to be way more scared. But like I said, as you know, we were talking about it this morning a little bit. I was like, actually, if you think about it, that is a seriously fucked up situation that's going. It's very frightening what's happening. And it's sort of one of these ideas that, like, you know, the sort of vibe of the film sort of settles with you over. Because I'm always searching for an arc or a plot, you know what I mean? Like, just like in my brain. So I sort of miss these sort of themes or whatever while I'm watching it.
That's so much more horrific as a woman who has to have a gynecologic exam every year as a part of my checkup. Thought about that. As a woman who has to worry about, like, you know, not now, I'm married. I've been married in a relationship for a long time, but, like, you know, it's a little bit scarier in a woman's world when it comes to the world of rape, relationships, being manipulated, you know, just like there's so much more vulnerability, and like we have to, you know, go through these kind of traumatic gynecologic exams and all these things, and like there's just, you know, a lot of things in the movie that we'll talk about, like that's the horror.
So when's the first time you saw it?
Oh gosh. I would say it was kind of late for me, actually. It was after I was in grad school, I think. So it was probably like 2 years ago. It was actually the first time I saw it. So it's not.
What about you?
I went through like a crazy Cronenberg phase, probably in early college.
This fucking guy jumps down my throat. I was like, he says, he just sends me the title as a text, you know, no fucking context or anything. And I'm like, dude, that's a show. And he's like, you fucking imbecile. It's like I should be a film fucking snob about Cronenberg of all fucking directors.
Yeah.
Although, to be
genius.
fair, I'm getting a Scanners tattoo, so I really should know more. Which, by the way, did you notice the Scanners crossover in this?
No.
So the guy that makes the utensils for him when he's going for
the artist.
Yeah, that makes the mutant woman utensils or whatever. That's Stephen Lack. He's the main character in.
You're correct.
In Scanners. Yeah.
I did not.
Real handsome, real like traditionally handsome guy. Anyway, it caught my eye. I had another question that this guy might know. I noticed Denise Cronenberg was the costume designer. Do you know? Is that a wife or a sister?
No relation.
Nope.
I don't know.
I
can check into it.
I feel like it's his wife, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, wife, sister, maybe wife. Like that's like what's the Mad Max guy?
Sister. Oh, that's
Sister?
so cool, dude.
Well, you know the Mad Max guy. His wife is the costume designer.
George Miller.
Yeah, she won fucking the Academy Award for Mad Max for Fury Road.
Think about getting to work with your sister and make this disgusting movie.
Well, this is something I will say.
It's really wholesome in a way.
That I love about this movie is the design. I love the sort of 80s modern, like the really like tiny little lamps. There's a lamp in one of the scenes. It's like a triangle top. It's like there's all this really like ultra chic Manhattan 80s vibe going. And I really, really enjoyed that about it.
The costumes, the operating room scenes where they're wearing all red scrubs are so sick.
Yeah.
Dude.
Like Handmaid's Tale. It's so creepy. But you know what drives me nuts?
Yes.
None of those people are sterile. They do not follow procedure at all. I was like, broke sterility. You fucked up. She's infected.
So you're not supposed to. It's frowned on if you collapse on your patient and start breathing through their breathing mask to get high. That's not good.
Even when they were like putting the garb on him, like you're not supposed to touch anybody from the waist up, and she's like patting down his outfit, like on his chest. I was like, you're done. He's not sterile.
Well, I suppose we could,
suspend disbelief. It's just because I know.
I am curious what your perspective is on it as somebody who knows about these things in terms of like your background actually being educated on it.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons why I chose this film, because it's...
Yeah. So what about their famous invention that they make? How does that like vibe in your brain? Like
the retractor. The
solid gold.
The solid gold one is just like a trophy for that.
Yeah, but he uses it in the end. He's like making a point to that one woman. He's like, this thing is made out of gold.
That scene is, by the way, if you want to talk about horror, that I was like, this is so viscerally uncomfortable for me. And I also can't really relate to it.
Yeah.
Since I'm a brother. but like just so gross.
It happens all the time. Women and people in those situations are pain is just ignored, and it's like, oh sorry. Like you see it all the time still, and it's like, oh, this is gonna suck. Like those things can hurt, but it's also like when you have somebody that's being like, ow, this hurts. And for somebody to just dismiss it completely, like these dudes are
and to be like, you're lucky to fucking be here. I don't want to hear about your bullshit pain levels. Yeah. I guess the more you think about it, the more it's really about the characters, about those two. And also, so how do we feel about Jeremy Irons?
Spectacular.
Right?
Such a good performance.
So I got to get the lady's perspective. Is he an insanely attractive dude or what? Because I feel like he is.
I mean,
I swoon over Jeremy Irons.
I'm glad for you.
Yeah.
I mean, he's okay.
I don't know. I've always have ever since the third Die Hard movie.
But it
he's
depends.
The villain.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a villain. I've just always thought he was so cool.
It's just weird, like, because it's like their characters are just so messed up.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's really hard.
He's not super dreamboaty in this one.
There's not a single redeemable character about either one of them either, except for maybe Beverly is a little bit, damaged and lovable in that sense.
Well, Beverly at least has like some capacity for like having an emotion, like for feeling something for somebody other than his brother.
Yeah.
But like that, I don't know. But then he can't handle it.
So I'm not gonna, as much as I would love to, I'm not gonna do like a full run through of this. But I feel like for people that haven't seen the movie, we should at least establish what it's about. Dead Ringers is about two twin, identical twins, Beverly and Elliot Mantle, portrayed by Jeremy Irons. They are gynecologists. We see them very early in life trying to have sex with a young girl. They're, two nerdy boys. They're like, can we have sex with you? And as you referenced earlier, she goes, fuck off, freaks. Yeah. They grow up. They invent some crazy devices that are like super useful within their industry. And then essentially the arc of the movie is it starts off with them sharing women where Elliot will seduce the women, and then Beverly, who's much more shy, will come in and have sex with them later, which is very unethical. And Elliot falls for one of these women, this actress, who they treat at their clinic. They're seducing a lot of these women via treating them at their clinic. And because of this, he starts using drugs very heavily. He's popping a bunch of stimulants, a bunch of barbiturates.
Seconal. Percodan.
Yeah, I was looking up these different drugs in there.
Oh, you had to look them up?
Some of them. I didn't know what Seconal was. But yeah.
Do you know where a famous film Seconal is referenced in?
What?
It's Fight Club. When he's asking for sleeping pills, he says lipstick red Seconals. And is like over.
They apparently call them Red Devils on the street. But Beverly starts getting geeked out of his mind, basically. He thinks that the woman is cheating on him, Claire, this actress. And so he kind of goes into this manic state and has this metallurgic artist design all of these gynecological tools for operating on mutant women. And while trying to deploy one of these, he injures this lady, starts trying to huff off her breathing mask because he's too high. And he's like, I need something to calm down.
He's got to take it down a notch, dude.
So then Elliot comes back into town and tries to help him out. But Elliot, they have this very codependent relationship where Elliot starts popping all the same pills that Beverly is taking.
Got to equalize.
Yes. And things fall apart, essentially. And they end up alone together in this clinic. They're eating beans, it looks like, and leaving beans all over the place. The production design is incredible. Like they trash the clinic, but they're both on the same drugs. And the movie ends with they've referenced Siamese twins throughout the movie and how dangerous it is to separate Siamese twins. And Beverly disembowels Elliot, who's pretty much too high to feel anything, it seems like. And then Elliot goes out and tries to call Claire, the woman, and she says, who is this? And he can't answer the question, so he goes back in and he dies in Elliot's arms.
Is that what happens?
Drug withdrawal. Yeah.
I was going to say, so he's dying.
Yes.
Of drug withdrawal?
I think that's the conclusion you can draw. Barbiturates are one where if you come off them very suddenly, you can die, which was what happened to the real people that this movie is based on.
Yeah. So
Crazy.
definitely interested in that story. I saw you sent me that. I did not get the opportunity to read it.
I read through it pretty thoroughly.
Oh yeah. Sounds nice. Sounds like you got a lot of time.
Yeah, well, I don't have any children because I'm more responsible with my decisions. So,
Or you're not prepared, you know. I mean, there's
I
a
have a child right now.
well, yeah. I mean, Monarch needs
Bring it on.
like a mascot for the Monarch.
That'd be pretty cool.
dude.
Yeah,
Fucking A.
Baby in the
I
halfway
actually had
house.
to cut the grass this morning, and I had to organize my copper pile because I collect scrap metals, and
Yeah.
I have a big pile, and I have to organize them.
That's what you're doing when I see you breaking into people's houses and stuff.
Yeah, big time.
Very nice.
So-
some things never change.
So, what kind of notes did you bring with you today, Evelyn? What are you like? You know, what drives you to want to talk about this movie so much, other than being in the field? You know, like as a movie buff, like what sets this as like the thing that, like, you know, really brought it to the front of your head when someone asked you to talk about a movie? You know what I mean?
Well, I think so. One of the things is that not many people know about this movie.
Yeah, I was grateful for the opportunity to see a movie I hadn't watched.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of came along. It actually had a pretty good budget for a Cronenberg film back in the
Yes.
80s, 88. I think it was like 13 million. It did not make its box office back. I mean, this movie, just the subject matter is so sensitive and just like and also just like this movie is so cerebral that mainstream audiences, I don't think it's not going to fare well, like, you know, just in cinematic box office setting.
Not a good date movie.
I definitely was watching this, and I was thinking about movie theaters in 1988 and the fucking reactions that there must have been going down, you know? Because Jeremy Irons was pretty famous by that point, and he was like a traditionally leading man. He must have been like going through an artistic phase or something and wanted to do something a little different. But
did you know that they actually wanted Robert De Niro to play this?
I could see that.
And he eventually got through the script and he had thought about it and he said no, like it like freaked him out too much. The subject matter was too much. And then I'm like, okay. And then you do like Cape Fear where you're like a pedophile like 2 years later. So whatever.
It's you know, they're gynecological instruments for mutant women. Okay.
Yeah.
It's no big deal.
You talking to me? Yeah. So
He does the mirror you talking to me scene, but it is him just talking to his twin. Gets confused.
I've heard of actors doing that and then not wanting, and then doing something ridiculous, you know, a few years later. But
it's funny because they kind of have a similar look. I feel like Jeremy Irons and Robert De Niro kind of have a similar look.
Yeah, young.
It's almost like I mean, I don't know. Jeremy Irons is great. Maybe this is not the right thing to say that he's like the good value version of Robert De Niro.
See that?
Yeah, the European, like, the Aldi's. Jeremy Irons is the Aldi's
He
Robert
looks
De Niro.
very British to me.
He does, yeah. He has definitely got that sort of like aristocratic kind of like snobby version.
But I think it was good, like having like a really like kind of like a tall, slender, like kind of like his being tall, you can be imposing, but then the slender part, like kind of like the feminine Beverly part can be a little, you know, less so. Because there are times I was like, man, he just looks like such a wiener right now. He's such a wimp.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that to me is like, I get Manhattan socialite all day from these people. I get like, you know, ultra modern metropolitan men, and that's generally and especially in the 80s to me is like a tall thin man.
Yeah.
Like it's just like that.
He looks like David Bowie.
A little bit, yeah.
To me.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
You are correct. It made 14 million and the budget was 13 million. So with production, with the promotional costs or whatever, it definitely was a bomb.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't think that was ever really Cronenberg's goals. I mean, look at all the shit that he made. He was not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he wasn't really going for that.
It's true. He just wants to do weird stuff. But was there anything else about this that you were fixated on that made you want to pick it, I guess?
Well, I asked you, like, okay, so what should make me want to pick a movie? And it's, you know, and you said something that has to do with your life. So I was like, okay, well,
yeah.
I'm in the field of gynecology. I'm in recovery from addiction.
Yeah.
I've had codependency issues in the past. Like you know, all kinds of things that just like little underlying themes with it that this movie is just really fascinating. And I also like love an underdog. So talking about a movie that just isn't very well known is something that like I would love more people to see this movie. And just, I don't know, I like making people uncomfortable too. I'm kind of weird. So
this will do that. This will do that. It took us 2 nights to watch. We got
it's long.
Well, it's
long.
It's kind of the case when you have kids too. Like
True.
It takes forever to get them, especially now with having the 3.
Yeah.
We still don't have like a system that is like 100% foolproof. So there are nights that we're getting to bed for ourselves at like 10. And we're trying to like, you know, wind down together. Maybe there's a little bit of work to do. And the idea of watching an entire movie at that point is just not realistic. So
yeah, for sure.
But it was just like, it was emotionally straining, this movie. It was like, all right, I think the first night we stopped and then I watched a little bit of Banshee. To sort of like,
I love Banshee.
Yeah, we watch Banshee in the middle of things, things right now. It's this sort of like a way over the top. It's a Cinemax show from like 10 years ago that he turned me on to it. It's just,
I've seen the first episode like 5 times.
Yeah.
And that's
It's ridiculous.
The pilot episode is insane.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, it's like sometimes like I'll watch a movie that'll get me so worked up that I will have to like watch something silly for like 15 minutes before I go to bed for fear that I'm going to end up, you know, being attacked by gynecological instruments for mutant women in my sleep or something.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating though too, because like, you know, there are things that happen in the world of medicine and like surgery and things. Like there are really bad doctors out there. Like there's the podcast like Dr. Death.
Yeah.
And you know,
That story is crazy.
Oh my gosh, like the guy that's the neurosurgeon, unquote unquote, that just, you know, the medical field covers these things up over and over again. But like there are people out there that like purposely botch things. But this world of like there's no such thing as a trifurcated uterus. There's not a thing that exists in medicine.
I believe it.
They made it up for the movie. There is a didelphys uterus, so you can have it septated into 2 areas where you can have 2 cervixes, 2 openings. Yeah, there are all kinds of anatomical anomalies of a uterus, but this does not exist. This movie made it up.
Okay.
Well, I was wondering, did it ever actually exist in the movie either, or was this always Ellie being a little off?
No, I think Claire is supposed to actually have the trifurcated thing.
And she's supposed to be this famous actress. What do you think like the reason for that is? Like why a famous actress who, in my personal opinion, did not look like a famous actress either. She looked like a French actress to me.
She is, I think part of what they're going for with that is that it explains why she's a drug addict for one thing.
Yeah.
And allows her to kind of turn him onto this. And it also gives a reason why she has to leave town for a couple of weeks. It's just kind of convenient.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it definitely adds an interesting element to the story that she is, you know, and then it's kind of like a trophy for Ellie that he's scoring, you know.
Yes.
And manipulating this like sort of high society woman or whatever.
True. And I also think there's an aspect of like the very first line, like when he's like, hey, like goes up to the little girl, like when they're little boys and they're like, do you want to come and have sex in our bathtub? It's for an experiment.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, so like sex has never been equated to an actual relationship or anything like, and I feel like that setting the scene like for the rest of the movie and like having her like, she can't get pregnant, so he doesn't have to worry about that shit. And they're in the field of fertility, but like a mutant woman, like sex has always been an experiment. So I don't know if there's like some aspect where like her having like these mutant parts or whatever, like they said, you have to try the actress. That's how he said it. Like, you know, that's how it's like he said it to his brothers, like you have to try the actress. There is no emotional attachment at all whatsoever. And I think there's so much intrigue. That she's an actress. It's somebody that can, you know, there's a different kind of status level. It's not somebody like equally in the medical field or something like where you see people pair up a lot. But she's somebody that's the status, but then she also has like this strange anomaly, like just very mysterious and something experimental. But then she also like needs them because she needs drugs I don't think that she cares about them.
That's a good point also. Elliot points out, I think that she's using us for drugs.
Yeah.
I think that may be at least how things start off between them. I will say she seems to genuinely love Beverly, which is wild because he's a complete wreck for most of the movie. They basically have one scene of gross, weird bondage sex.
Yeah,
and
with
then
the tourniquets and all, and the clamps. Yeah,
it's so strange.
Isn't that Elliot though?
I believe that's Beverly.
That's supposed to be Beverly.
I thought it was
got
supposed to be Elliot
confused.
because it starts off with him saying that he's like, I'm going to do horrible things to her, and Beverly's like, what kind of horrible things? But then after that scene, you see Beverly coming home from that encounter, and Elliot's like eating and watching TV. He's like, how was it?
Tell me.
And
yeah,
he's
yeah,
like, I
that's
just
right.
want to tell you how it was, you know?
I don't have to share everything, brother.
But then from there, he very quickly is just like geeked up on drugs and kind of shivering and sweating for the rest of the movie. And she's like, I just love him so much.
I think that plays though. The
He's
sort
codependent.
of and the sort of like bleeding heart, actress type, like loves the underdog.
Yeah. She's
or
trauma
whatever.
bonded to him also because he gives her this horrible news.
I think
He has to tell
got
her
excited.
that she can't have children.
Tony did because he gets to do his British accent sometimes too.
Yeah,
He
maybe.
loves busting out the British
they're
accent.
in Canada. Why are they British? I'd have that confused me.
Jeremy Irons.
Can you imagine them not being British?
Yeah, I mean, I think
just makes perfect
if you
sense.
want Jeremy Irons doing, I mean, he did do good with the German accent actually too. So I don't know. I just feel like if he was doing like a Canadian like dork accent, that it would ruin the fucking movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what
I mean, in my head canon, they're not even British. They just talk like that because they're such
socialite.
weird little freaks.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That scene that you were talking about. So like, and then they end up talking about her fears. And this is something like, there's just so many deep cuts of this movie emotionally. Cause it's, she literally says, I'm not a woman. I can't bear children. So I'm not a woman. I'm just a little girl. And there's so many, they're infertility doctors. That's what they specialize in. And it's so crazy to have people that have zero empathy in such a sensitive.
Yeah, that is a funny aspect I didn't think about. The bedside manner really matters in that field.
Oh my God.
And they have zero.
Dude, he literally,
Like the
this woman's
antithesis.
crying hysterically, and he pulls her out of the office and, his, secretary, here, come here, handle her.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't do it. They don't know what to do with emotions.
Yeah.
And then he just,
That's very
leaves the
funny.
woman, legs up in the stirrups while he has to go do something else. It's pretty wild how inappropriate they are throughout the movie in their
Yeah, even starting off, but progressively from there.
Yeah.
And it isn't, I think, in a sense, it's kind of like an indictment of not necessarily that particular field of medicine, but medicine as a whole, where it's like these guys are clinically brilliant, it seems like. They're inventing these new devices and all this stuff, but in terms of how they actually relate to and deal with their patients, they're god awful at it, and yet they're still able to advance pretty far.
Yeah,
Very
to the
far.
top of the field.
Yeah.
There are some people that should just stick to research,
Yeah.
So what's the the American Psycho writer?
Bret Easton Ellis.
Yeah, I get that kind of vibe. Like that whole world, and every other female character, like that redhead that's in the movie, she's a total fucking sociopath. And then like that, everyone in that movie that is sort of on their level is, this really callous sort of person.
I can see that, yeah. The artist essentially steals his idea and puts it in that show.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I bet we could work something out. He's like,
And he
there's nobody has any morals except for, the victims.
Yeah, I think Claire we're supposed to see is probably, she's kind of a fucked up and traumatized person.
Perfect target.
She talks about the fact that she's just like, I've just slept with basically everyone because I've been desperate to try and have a baby.
Yeah,
that
she
sort of
said
thing.
a funny line that I liked. Never even thought any contraceptive thoughts.
Yeah.
She's like, I've definitely never used contraception. I've never even thought any contraceptive thoughts. Thought that was funny.
She has a scene where he tells her that she can't have a baby, and she cries. And like you said, she says, "I'm not even a woman, I'm a little girl." And then she immediately gets horny and wants him to spank her.
So does your husband like this movie?
Tasteful.
He does not like horror whatsoever, but he actually watched this with us, and he was like, "Okay, I like that," because he likes like more cerebral,
Heady,
psychological.
Yeah, I can see that.
And yeah, so
I'm not a big horror guy either. This guy's always bringing up horror movies. The first movie we ever did was fucking total head fuck. But yeah, I kind of get that, and this is definitely a movie that you can think about over time.
The portrayal of drug use, I think, I really enjoy. I like the way that it kind of starts off as this functional thing, and it develops into having to take one to combat the effects of the other, and that sort of thing.
And then it goes as far as going from oral use to intravenous use.
Yes.
And then like mixing chemicals and stuff like that.
The scene where they're pacing around the apartment together and they're describing their schedule. We'll do the Percodan in the morning, and then because it's a Saturday, we'll have a little treat,
a little
dilaudid.
Yeah.
And
which that stuff is special.
I also, if you want to talk about the humor in the movie that you seem to have missed, the scene where he's shivering in where Beverly's shivering in Claire's arms, he's like, "You need to fill this prescription for second hour." And he goes, "Don't tell Elliot." And she's like, "Why not?" And he goes, I think
believe
he
he's
might
a drug
be
addict.
a drug addict.
Yeah, that was okay. I mean,
that's so funny.
Dude, I laughed out loud because like whenever they're uncomfortable or they're being confronted, they revert to like childhood, like acting like toddlers. He's like trying to button a button. He's like, "My button," and he like cries. I was like, oh my God. They just like turn into children whenever they're being.
"I want ice cream."
Yeah.
And he goes, when she turns on the TV, he goes, "It's my favorite program."
well, it's super. The ice cream, I thought, because they're eating cake with their hands and that's like a junkie thing, right? Like when you're on opiates, man, fucking sugar is the vibe. But I caught on to the fact that they're these super grown, but there are a lot of men like that are very like successful in their fields and very like inept in their personal lives, and they have like maids, and they have basically their mom still lives at home, kind of like somebody does all their chores for them, and they can't even fucking like tie their own shoes, but they drive like a $500,000 car. You know what I mean? Like they were kind of touching on that. Like these guys have no like emotional growth. They're just they're just brains or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of the whole idea. They have no emotions, right? Like they have no bedside manner. They don't understand people. They're just sociopaths.
Yeah.
I mean, their deepest love is for each other, and that ultimately is kind of narcissistic because there's not much separation between them to begin with.
I don't know. I have a hard time enjoying this because I'm like, I don't fucking like these guys. You know what I mean?
I think that they're amusing in how gross.
Like going to the zoo or something. I'm looking at the snakes. Going to the zoo and looking at the snakes.
I think it's fun to dissect, like just metaphorically. There's like the feminine Beverly, and then there's like the more masculine side of Elliot, where Elliot is the one he's the one that
takes credit
for everything, and he's up and he's making the speeches and he gets all the women and all these things, and then there's Beverly who's like doing the background and like putting all the work in and doing the research and all the things, and then the one that actually has some capacity to try to fall in love with somebody else, but then emotionally just immediately falls apart, can't handle it because the codependency is the twincest is so real. So it's very interesting, and I love how isn't it Ellie the one that is there when Claire is like making fun of his name, Beverly's name? It's like, that's a woman's name. It's like it's spelled differently. He gets very offended, but I think isn't it Elliot in that scene?
It might be.
I think so. And then he gets really upset and freaked out because it's almost like a comment on like being gay, and he gets so offended.
Yeah.
He goes,
What do you say,
think
my
I'm
mother?
gay?
So offended.
You think my mother thought that I was going to be a woman or something? Yeah, it was pretty funny. These guys are not put together very well.
And they kind of, even before the drugs are introduced, there's some drinking issues as well. Like we have...
Yeah, there's a scene where he's drinking.
They're always drinking at night, and then I guess this is after the drugs, but when Beverly shows up drunk while Elliot's accepting the award,
Yeah.
and he's just smashed, and
That super fucking over
I'm
the
the
top
one who
fall.
slaves over the hot snatches. The fact that they're still able to
Calls
have
them
a career.
bimbos and hot
Yeah.
snatches. Yeah.
They still have a career for several weeks or months after that is pretty wild.
Yeah.
I feel like in today's age, that would have gone viral, and people would stop trusting them. But I don't know.
We didn't have the world of the internet. Nobody could put them on blast back then.
It's true.
Back in '88. User.
So do you think that in the field that you're in, so you're in the field,
Yeah.
qualified as a,
Women's health nurse practitioner and certified nurse midwife.
okay. So do you think that this movie would be a useful tool in training programs? Like, don't do this.
Awkward day at school.
Very.
Well, just like a
Very
lesson in
weird
bedside
training
manner.
day.
That let's behave the opposite of these men. As far as like dealing with the customer's emotions or the client's emotions.
I mean, it would definitely
Customer
be. You
client.
don't do that, like you don't leave a woman in a room just like sitting there with her legs in the stirrups while you have to go get something that you forgot or whatever. You don't just, dismiss somebody's pain. But we've come so far in this field. So something in like kind of like my generation of women's health providers.
Yeah.
I've been highly trained in trauma-informed care. So I ask everybody before an exam, do you have any history of trauma, anything that I should be aware of, any accommodations that you need? And, I'm like, have you ever seen a speculum? And if they've never seen one, I show them. I let them hold it. They can insert it themselves if they want to.
Okay.
There's all kinds of things that you can do. Like, we've come so far in the world of trauma-informed care in the gynecological field.
So I'm interested in this pertaining to you, pertaining to your reason for going into this field and like what it looked like. Cause I do remember, we knew each other in passing over like 15 years now or something.
11.
When did you get sober? 2011?
2014.
14. Okay.
April 7th, 2014. I just had an anniversary.
So
Congrats.
yeah,
man.
I was living on the farm and hanging around AA, and I think you were like showing up. Like Peter was coming around the same time, and Jeremiah was coming around, and there was like a group of guys. Waterman, I think, was coming around then too.
Yeah.
Shouts out John Waterman. Check out Spoiled Brats, my other podcast.
Yeah, we're dropping last names
Plug
like
it.
a motherfucker, which is fine. And over the years, like, cause I left and didn't like stay a part of it, but and Teresa remembers when you were living with Monica and you had started a business, you were doing like jewelry. Cause we saw you at that, and there was like a company, right? It was like a recovery thing.
Yeah.
What was it
was
called?
called Recover Tea.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, recycling T-shirts and recovering lives. So,
Okay. And then this just led into medicine and eventually women's health or what? Like, how did that play out?
God, I don't.
It's an elaborate story. We want to hear the whole thing.
It's so weird, because like 11 years ago when I was in treatment getting sober, if you would have told me that I would be doing what I'm doing for a career now, I would not have believed you at all.
Which is incredible. People that get
Right.
sober and then like go on to have these great careers and full family lives. You're a mother, you're expecting, like
Yeah.
I'm obviously a huge fucking fan of that kind of thing because all too often in recovery do I see people sort of get sober and hide.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sort of like cozy into these like, just good enough lifestyles because their previous life was so hard, and just to be saved from that pain soothes it enough, right? Mm-hmm. But then people that excel and recover like this whole new person and really kind of like that's impressive to me. Like I really, I appreciate seeing that. I appreciate like my friends that are that way. I feel like I'm sort of on the same path. It's important to me to like have a, like a full life, like I was given of like a gift, by getting sober or whatever. So
absolutely.
So just specifically leading into women's health, like what drove you to that,
So I think it started with yoga when I found yoga when I was in treatment.
Okay.
And from yoga, I met a community where there was like more natural things, like, there's prenatal yoga and there's doulas to help people through childbirth and everything. And childbirth has always been something that's interested me because I had come from a huge family. My mom is one of 10. My dad's one of 8, like a million cousins.
He is Irish.
Catholic.
There you go.
Yes.
Rabbits.
Yes.
Yeah, big time.
So.
And you have a brother, don't you?
I've got 3.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
He's tuned out right now. He's not even. Shout out, snack of all trades.
I became a doula because I got interested in the childbirth thing, just like the exposure and meeting people who were doulas and everything in the yoga community. Because a lot of those people share the same interests. So
shout out Lotus Pond.
Lotus Pond. Yes, I used to sell my jewelry at their festival every year.
My sister works there now.
Nice.
Like part-time, yeah.
Nice. So I became a doula, and I remember my first birth, I was like, this isn't going to be enough. I need to be a midwife. I want to deliver babies. So I enrolled in the Florida School of Traditional Midwifery, and that is...
Midwifery?
Midwifery. Nice.
And
I can hear his excitement from the term midwifery. That is a very nice term. Okay, so I want to stop. I want to. So your first experience professionally handling the birth of another person's child was like a good experience for you. Is what you're saying? Like you were like, this is fucking where it's at.
Yeah.
You thought it was a super special experience.
Yeah.
I can see that. I mean, I've only been. Well, mine not included, involved in 3 births and 2 different, situations, and they're special. Mm-hmm. There's definitely but I could never tell if it was just because I was so like closely connected to the event, but I watch the professionals and I can tell that some of them there's all these different personalities. There's like older women that have like super maternal vibes that just like grab your baby and slap it on it and slap its back. There's like, come on, wake up, and it's like, like this older Jamaican lady with my twins. She was hilarious. I was like, God, man, and then when Riley was born, I remember because Riley was a sort of complicated procedure. It wasn't a C-section, but it got very close. And there was a girl working who was like, they pushed me out of the way to like finally do, I think they used a vacuum. Mm-hmm. And I could see the medical assistant or doula, I'm not sure what her actual title was. The look on her face was, I'm going back to business school. Like, this is not fucking for me at all. I'll never forget her face. She was just like jaw hit the floor. She was like, nope, I'm not. This is not,
It is a calling, and it's so funny.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? That's cool that you found something. Like, there was a moment where you were like, I want to do more of this at a higher level.
Yeah.
Could you explain the distinction between a doula and a midwife?
Sure. So a doula has no medical responsibility. There's no medical training. They should not be giving medical advice. There's no prescribing of medication. There's no taking anybody off of medications. I'm being very specific because I've seen doula do all of these things.
So technically, what is their
role is to be like physical support, spiritual support, emotional support. They help them. They'll help a birthing person go through like, we think maybe your baby's, a little off in their positioning to come through. So let's put you in this position. And then, there's somebody having back pain. They'll give them counter pressure and just kind of give encouragement along the way. It's like one-on-one support that is like just to be with that person solely to emotionally help them through the process. Typically with a natural labor process is where you see doulas, but they do work in the hospital.
And generally, I mean, always a woman. I mean,
it doesn't have to be. I've met one male midwife.
Doulas. Yeah.
The term midwife just translates to with woman.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So it's not like they're
You
like
don't
a
have to change it to
mid-husband
mid-husband.
or anything like that. But
I wonder in the sake of like biological empathy, right? Can a man really understand, you know, I mean, I guess with enough training and enough like studying and learning, and men and women bodies aren't that dissimilar, but I feel like as pertaining to like the pregnancy, right? Like only a woman maybe would like know when you talk about counter pressure. And I'm also just a knucklehead, so I'm like as far removed from that as someone could be, I guess. But I don't know. It feels like it would be at the very least advantageous to be a woman.
I believe so. Is even for me, like being a woman, a women's health nurse practitioner or a midwife helping people through the process of delivering babies is wildly different from before I had a child to now that I've had a child, and I did my birth naturally because I was like, well, if I'm walking women through this, then I need to know how it feels. So I did a natural birth. Yeah. So, you know, like there's such a difference now in my empathy and care, even with the fact that I had the right anatomy, you know? Like,
Well, and you know, I mean, you know, your muscles are in different places and you just, there's like a connection there.
Yeah.
You know, like if I go like, you know, exercise, and if I exercise with someone who has exercised before, then when I'm explaining form, you know, they like pick up on it. But if I tell someone to like retract their scapula when they're going to do a pull-up and they're like, and they've never done a pull-up in their life, they're looking at me like I'm fucking crazy. You know what I mean? So there's like that.
This is again, that scene where he is kind of high and doing the exam on the woman. Yeah. This was the thing that like, it made my stomach hurt because I'm like, I can't imagine what this would be like, but it's just incredibly invasive to have someone inside of you and you're going, cut that out, that hurts, and they're just like ignoring you. It's really, that to me is like the most brutal thing in there. But I mean, it is
pretty bad.
Yeah.
It just kind of ties into what you're saying about the importance of empathy, the importance of understanding, the importance of having someone who's familiar with how this works, like on a personal level.
And you were a doula. For how long?
Not that long.
No.
Like you said, you had the one birth and you're like, I need to get midwifed up.
I did. I had 3 deliveries as a doula, and I enrolled in school as soon as I could.
And how long was that school?
So my journey is really weird. So I originally started at the Florida School of Traditional Midwifery, which is an out-of-hospital midwife practice. So a licensed midwife, which there's a big difference between a licensed midwife and what I am today. So this was a 3-year program, and I got 2 years into that program. And I actually switched to nurse midwifery, which is the nurse practitioner route.
Oh, okay.
So a licensed midwife has just the scope of taking care of a woman from pregnancy through 6 weeks postpartum. And there's no other scope of practice within that. And you're very limited as to what you can prescribe and all of that. But what I decided I wanted to do nurse midwifery and be a nurse practitioner and do women's health in general. I do anything from adolescent to postmenopausal. I do hormone replacement therapy. I full scope OBGYN care, and I also rotate call in the hospital. I've delivered. I started my job in June, and I've delivered 115 babies.
Holy shit!
Wow, in just under a year.
Yeah.
Wow. And so wait, so
whoa,
where? Like at
HCA Trinity Hospital. I work in a hospital. I work with an OBGYN office. I work with a practice.
Where's the hospital?
Trinity. So HCA Trinity, all the way up there.
Yeah. Okay. I know what you're talking about. 54 West. Yeah. That Trinity area is pretty wild.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
You play this giant
travel there
role in all these people's lives.
And do you work specifically? Yeah. You just open up. This podcast is gonna be long as fuck.
I have my home group at 5.
Do you travel? Do you travel from? Like, is that your office, or do you have like an office, or what?
Yeah, no, that's I do commute for work.
Ooh.
So
I used to do that. I used to actually work. Well, and now I'm a super plumber. We could get all into that if you guys want. But I used to drive. So my old office, when I was a project manager for a construction company, was on Gun Highway, just south of 54. So right down the street from Trinity. So I know that commute pretty well.
Yeah,
that's a tough one.
It's honestly not bad because I'm always going against the typical. Like
guess,
I'm going
yeah.
up that way in the morning and then coming back in the afternoon.
What's the hours like? You're just like 9 to 5 or whatever? Or
I see patients from 8 to 4 when I'm in the clinic, and then when I'm on call in the hospital, it's a 24-hour.
And in your first year of like totally qualified, you're almost doing 3 a week.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. That's fucking incredible.
Yeah, I've done this. I know the operating room procedures. I've help assisted with C-sections. Like I'm literally sewing people back up. It's. I'm like, who allowed my hands to do this?
Yeah,
Who gave me this license? I can prescribe narcotics. There is wild.
Let's talk after.
And I'll tell you, man. You know, I'll never forget the doctors.
Yeah.
I'll never forget specifically the ones for the twins. They were that you kind of remind me of them. They were women, and they were, you know, when you give birth to twins, it's an operating room because they're high risk or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the calmness in this woman's, and just the way that she carried herself was so soothing. Like it was, you know, because you're fucking scared. You have not pregnancy in general, but like high risk pregnancy, the whole fucking time, all anyone's telling you is that your second baby is going to be a C-section 90%. And it's like, God damn, you know, that's a frightening prospect. And I mean, you know, even though it is a fairly normal procedure today, it's still a surgery and all this stuff. And the way that this lady carried herself, I swear to God, if I would have had the intuition to do it at the time, I would have gotten her address and sent her a fucking birthday gift basket every single year just to thank her. Like that's a really cool job to have, you know? So it's like super interesting to me. So all in from when you became a doula to now, what was that time period?
Let's see, 2 years at the Florida School of Traditional Midwifery, and I stopped that to switch to the nurse practitioner route. So 2 years. 2 years in nursing school to become an RN. So I was not a nurse.
Okay, I gotcha.
And then a 27-month program when I went to Georgetown to be a nurse practitioner and get my master's.
So you went up there? You moved up there?
No, I was here. It was I got to go up there several times on different occasions to campus for like intensives and stuff. But yeah, so it was mostly remote though.
So we're talking about 6 years? Thereabouts?
I know. I should have just been a fucking doctor.
Yeah. Well, your best kind of doctor. I mean, really.
Have you encountered anybody in that process that had this kind of, like the characters in this movie, this level of like kind of like callousness and, you know, when I say clinical, I'm like...
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
Because it's clinicality about stuff.
Okay, so...
Name names.
No.
First and last, we need fucking license numbers.
No, there was actually a situation a couple weeks ago where, you know, we have a new group of doctors that come in. They're called hospitalists. So they come in and they're just on the floor and they rotate. Mm-hmm. And they're supposed to be there to, you know, help us whenever we need help, whenever, you know, we need some extra support. I had a case where the birth was great. Baby was fine. Everything was beautiful. And then I'm working on getting the placenta delivered and the cord detached. This is going to get really graphic, you guys.
Okay.
We're here for it.
Insert graphics of placentas being detached here.
Trigger warning for anybody.
Yeah.
So anyway, but as I'm, you know, trying to work on the placenta, and this has never happened to me before. The cord avulsed off the placenta while the placenta was still attached to a uterus. So I didn't have anything to hold on to anymore.
I can understand the concept.
So yes, so basically there's this placenta that's still attached, and there's a port for bleeding that's, you know, like all of that. And so I called immediately for a hospitalist for backup, and I'm trying to manually extract this placenta with my hands, which that's what you do. That's protocol. Anyway, so this doctor comes in and she's like, she would not glove up and help me.
Really?
And my patient was screaming. She was writhing. And like, there was a part of me, what she did was come and she was helping me to, like, she walked me through it because I'd never done a manual extraction before. So there's a first time for everything. But my issue with that situation was that we are not a teaching hospital, and that's not what my patient signed up for. I asked that doctor to come in and help and get that done quickly for her to get it done. Yeah. And instead, this doctor with a straight face, I'd never met her before, but she just comes in and she refused to help. And she...
Under the guise of, I'm here to teach, not to touch, or under the guise of, I'm not insured properly?
No, there's nothing to do with insurance. She just didn't want to do it. Like, and it was so weird.
Jesus
and then, oh, dude, it was...
What was her... Was she just like, ew, no?
No,
I'm
she
getting
just
more
was
of a
like
not my job vibe. Like,
yes, exactly.
yeah,
and that's
yeah.
like they were, and I was like, no, this is exactly your job. This is exactly your job. This is why you're here.
Well,
so,
yeah, I mean,
anyway, at the end of the day, my patient ended up being fine. She took it like a champ.
Good.
I was dying on the inside doing this. Like literally, like, I mean, my arm was covered in blood, like up to here.
Sure.
And, and I literally have never, ever like been to the point where my PPE, my protective gear, like didn't actually fully protect me from like getting blood on my skin. It had soaked through.
oh,
And
wow.
like, and I just like, there are times like that, I was so somber for the rest of the day. And that doctor, as
Yeah.
soon as that placenta came out, she was like, good job, you did it. And like just went out of the room and didn't even make sure. So there's a risk for postpartum hemorrhage when that happens. Like there's risk for infection. She did not stick around for a second to make sure that patient was going to be stable after we manually had to take her placenta out. And she ended up having 2,700 mLs of blood loss.
Oh, wow.
So I had to replace her blood and all this stuff. But, but that doctor could not have given two craps that my patient was writhing in pain. And, and there are people that don't have empathy, but that's also, it's like one of those fields where there are so many people that like are clinically psychopaths in the field of medicine.
Sure. Sometimes it makes you better at, surgery type things.
Just go into research and don't touch people.
Yeah, I feel like that's a really
I've heard that, though,
storied
that
debate,
if you have too much empathy, then you're like digging in some guy's liver and you're like, what if that was my liver? And then you're bad at it because you're like, ooh, but
there's a
if you're actually talking to
balance.
Conscious people, one would hope that
but there's a balance. Like if you're a doctor and you're like, if that's the field that you go into, it's like, I do have a lot of empathy for women, in the field and everything. It doesn't stop me from doing my job. Her placenta had to come out one way or another.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But there are people that like just are like, oh, well, that's the way it goes sometimes. That's the risk. And it's just like they lose and they dissociate so far emotionally because it's almost like if you let yourself like cry or get sad, I've dealt with really sad things in my field, I've had really bad days. Like it's either the happiest of times for people or it's the saddest of times for people. There is no just middle of the road in my field.
Yeah.
It is either the saddest of the sad or the happiest of the happy.
I've thought about that being in the NICU with Mason, one of my twin boys. He had some labored breathing when he was born, and I was in the NICU, and I was just thinking, like, man, this is the
babies.
best possible scenario that I'm in right now. It is a very like weird place, NICU. It's like because it's all babies being treated, brand new ones. But
with these people that you're talking about, where you feel like they're kind of dissociated and checked out from it, do you think it's people that start off that way and never change, or is it people that have reached like a level of compassion fatigue and burnout where they're at the point where they're just like can't care anymore?
Compassion fatigue and burnout, I would say most of the part, for sure.
Because I run into that in social work. I have people with other social workers where they do not care anymore.
Nobody goes into nursing like with or medicine with an outlook of like, I want to do this because I want to people get into the field because they want to help people, and it becomes so difficult, and just all of the hard things that you see and you really do, like you can become desensitized to it. But, I'm glad this movie makes me like, it makes my skin crawl.
If it didn't, there'd be something wrong with you.
Yeah, I think anyone that sees this, that's the whole idea.
No, and I'm glad. Like I still thank God my sponsor is also a therapist. Like I'll have a really hard day at work. I'm like SOS. I need.
So you're still like super involved. in recovery and all that.
Yeah.
Doing the home group. Mm-hmm. I'm always interested to talk to people about this too, because the fuller my life gets, the different my recovery starts to look.
For sure.
And like, early on, it was 1 a day minimum, and then maybe like year 2 or 3, I'm down to 5. And I would even like I would be on team like those guys with all this time. Now they got careers. They don't got time for and it's like, now that I'm here and I have like a career, my wife has a career and we have 3 children and there's just so much going on, I don't go, like my home group is changing. I mean, I'm actually changing it right now, but it's like, I don't know. It's just weird that I used to have this idea about there was like this one sort of microcosm of recovery that was the victory, because that's where like the change happened, like the YPG and the men's yana, like that was my, and so that's what I equated with as the solution. And now I'm in 6:30 a.m.s. Yeah. It's a completely different world, but I'm getting the same thing. I'm actually getting what I need now because I'm around other people that are in the same situations. There's dads that are there because this is the only time that they can go. You know what I mean? And, stuff like that. So that's good to hear. Like, you're doing like, do you do like just a women's or do you do like?
I do. So typically, and like you said, it's hard to maintain AA in your life, after a certain amount of time, like as life gets so busy. But like I've gone through periods where things have ebbed and flowed, and I tried my bout where I was kind of an untreated alcoholic, where I was the director of nursing at Turning Point and in my grad school program, and had an infant, and it was COVID. And I hated the Zoom meetings. What I told myself, that was my excuse. But I ended up not going to meetings for like almost 2 years. And I got so fucking miserable.
I bet.
Oh my God. I was miserable. I was unhealthy physically. Like I was like, pretty much like just like kind of godless, like had no spirituality. I was bankrupt. Anyway, and I came back, and it just to even have like, I go to my home group once a week.
Yeah.
And, I actually had a share last week where I got really vulnerable and I ended up crying in the meeting. And it just, I still need that. I find that I still need a place to go to be with women who are like me and to share what's going on with me. Just, and I felt better after I shared. I still need that 11 years later. It doesn't matter, but I still have a few sponsees. I'm sponsored, but it's not as crazy active with all the stuff. But like I'm glad that I can encourage the newcomers because now my life is really full because AA gave me a life.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and so on the front end, you did all the work, or you did all lived and breathed the social life, the everything.
Camping trips, all this. Yeah.
So when I'm interacting with a new person and I'm telling them to go to 7 a week, do the 90, go to the volleyball, go to the fucking retreats. I'm not being a hypocrite, bitch, because I did it. I'm just not doing it currently. But I was given this thing that deserves but it's like, and that also doing that work in the beginning put me in a position now that I had gone through a period where I wasn't going to many and became very sick. I mean, I became aware of it, and I knew where the answer was. And now, because it's God, right? Without getting too much into that, the idea of the community and being able to share my life with other people candidly, that experience the same sort of psychological experience that I do in terms of their journey through life, right? Is unparalleled in its usefulness in my life. So if I can just go to one place every week where I got people that live the same kind of life that I do and we can talk together, then it changes the whole course of the following week. And that I handle things differently. I reach out to them more throughout the week. Just by going to one a week, I'm using the phone more. You know what I mean? And I think it's cool that, and everyone's on this eternal balance, journey or whatever, that, we're able to sort of navigate that with help from other people and see that and watch our lives grow and like have to change the knobs a little bit and not necessarily feel the need to like fucking destroy everything and in order to treat it. You know what I mean? Like you can catch it or whatever before. So.
Yeah, for sure.
But that is awesome. What else you got, Tony?
Well, do you all want to hear about the real guys?
Yeah, I do want to talk about that because do you have any notes on that? Do you know anything about that?
I just know that it's based on a true story of like these medical doctor twins.
You sent me a New Yorker article.
It's from Vulture, and it's from, well, yes, you're right. It was a New York magazine, 1975. So it's from when they happened. And it's written by someone who had the doctors treat them. Ooh. I will give you one quote that kind of ties into what we've been talking about so far. This is somebody, not the author, but somebody else who had them as their physician. Having the Marcuses was a horrible experience. One would check with his fingers to see how far I was dilated. Standard procedure, but never very pleasant. Then he would call his brother and have him check too. They did this twice. It was painful enough to have two people do it and unnecessary. I finally had to have my husband demand that they stop this. It was as if one couldn't have an experience without sharing it with his brother. So the main yeah, that's really, really weird.
Not to mention,
100%.
Be like, get over here and you check it out too.
Not to mention the risk for infection with that increases exponentially. It's bad medicine.
Yeah, right? This is going down in the 70s. So the movie came out in 88, and it had a very 80s vibe, but the actual story was...
They died in... Yes, I believe in the 1970s, yeah.
If the article was written in 75.
Yeah. And they were found much like in their apartment, their palatial apartment, just filled with trash. And one of them dies, and the other one is seen in public looking like gaunt and kind of haggard, and then goes back in, and then the other one dies. And they died of barbiturate withdrawal. But
really,
earlier in their careers, one of them was married, so that's a difference from the movies, is that this guy actually had a life, and in the movie, it's none of them have any lives. But he lost his wife and his family because he started overusing these methamphetamines in order to do this work. And another thing that seems to be true to life in the movie is one of them was the guy that would go to these conferences and take credit for all this work, and the other one was kind of behind the scenes putting in the grunt labor of everything. And they're found, one of them was face up on the floor, nude except for his socks. His wiener was out. Crazy, dude. I gotta tuck my bird away before I die. I can't be found like that. Cyril was found dressed in his shorts and face down on a big double bed.
Both died of barbiturate withdrawal?
So they were, yes, barbiturates had caused their death, not because they had suddenly taken a large quantity, but rather they had stopped and had the fatal convulsions typical of barbiturate withdrawal. And that's what caused them to die.
That I seized.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But barbiturates, because I had always... benzodiazepine, is that classified as a barbiturate, I guess?
No, but it's
completely
similar.
Different. But they're out of fashion now. I mean, you don't really see many barbiturates. Some are actually kind of making a little bit of a comeback in the detox world. But I mean, for the like Quaaludes, all that stuff, like you can't even get that stuff hardly anymore.
So these things are doing the same thing that alcohol is doing, in that, because opiates and barbiturates are different.
Yes.
And what they're doing biologically to you. But barbiturates are doing the same thing that alcohol does. Because I was under the impression that the only thing that could kill you withdrawal-wise was alcohol or benzodiazepine.
I think those are the only two widely used and abused substances now that can kill you. I don't think people can get their hands on barbiturates, at least not in the United States.
Yeah. But so withdrawal from barbiturates can't kill. What a fucking miserable way to die.
Yeah, it would suck.
Oh my God. The panic that's associated with that. Because I've been in severe alcohol withdrawal and afraid that I was going to die. And it was probably one of the most terrifying experiences psychologically of my life. Sitting on a couch, not having access to alcohol or money to buy alcohol.
Yeah.
And having drank every waking moment for months or whatever. And for that to actually be how you go out with your penis out and everything, dude.
With your penis out.
Yeah, that's tough, dude. Especially if you got like a tiny little British wiener too. I wonder, they weren't actually attractive, skinny British men?
They were pretty handsome guys. I'm picturing this. They were not British, but
We're going to need to put a picture of these two.
We'll throw a picture of them in there.
For sure. Yeah.
But they're described by people that knew them as remote and distant and icy.
No shit.
The author of this thinks that they may have had schizoid personalities. They feared alienating one another. And they were hateful and cold toward people. There's a quote where one of the Marcuses is talking to a woman who's she says, "I think maybe I'm carrying twins." And he stares at her and he says, "You pregnant women are all alike. Just because you overeat and get fat, you think you're going to have twins." He spoke to me with such contempt.
Did she have twins or?
No.
No. Okay.
But there's a lot of these stories
So he
of
was
these
just being
guys
honest.
that they made their way very far in this field because I guess they were achieving these benchmarks that you're supposed to achieve and they were doing valuable research or whatever. But the women that they interview in this are all like, these guys were
Horrible.
you know.
Were they in the specialty of infertility? Do you know?
Yes. They specialized women that had a miscarriage and were coming back to be treated
Golly.
Wow.
So
again. So people that are women that are already traumatized, basically.
That's
basically.
fucked.
Wow.
Well, it reminds me though of like scenes where like in Mad Men. Do you remember that show where the doctor, the OBGYN is like smoking a cigarette and being like super rude to January Jones, whatever her character's name was, and it was this vibe like in the 60s, which is probably more likely when the article came out in 75, maybe it was the 60s or 70s. Yeah, medicine was super misogynistic. It was not. We had not evolved at all at that point.
They say in this article, the author says, "I can think of almost no occupation other than medicine in which explosive, paranoid, peculiar behavior is so long tolerated." Again, you're saying we've come a long way. This is 1970s, but
Yeah.
Oh, but I mean, there's still the personalities in medicine are just it's wild. Like, I mean, people who are drawn to the field of medicine a lot of times they're egomaniacs. They want money. They want power.
Yeah,
they
And
want,
there's a connection to high intelligence and sociopathic behavior too, right? I mean, the God complex or whatever. Yeah.
there's
Man, I'm
also
so glad I'm a fucking idiot
one of
with a heart.
One of the twins, Stuart, the one that was doing a lot of the work and became dependent on methamphetamines, started calling his patients late at night from this bar. He was getting drunk and basically calling them and venting about
Oh dear.
how he had too much work to do and stuff. These guys did not have great boundaries.
No.
So they were alternately extremely cold toward people and then would be like, "Would you be my mommy? I'm having a rough time," to like a woman that you're supposed to be treating.
That's insane. I could never imagine like putting a burden of like what I'm feeling on a patient.
So who wrote
Being overwhelmed.
the
Oof.
movie? Does David Cronenberg write his shit too?
Dead Ringers is written by him in coordination with Norman Snyder.
So they saw this story and they were like, this needs to be a movie. This is like the perfect setting for.
Yeah. And there's so much of it is straight from the story of these actual guys. The scene where Beverly collapses and Elliot runs to him and he has to get resuscitated actually happened. And the
Resuscitated?
excuse me. One of the reasons that's notable is that the way that actually happened is Stuart, I believe, collapses in their apartment. They had separate dwellings at this point. And the doorman calls his brother and he's like, "I think that he might be passed out in there. I haven't seen him in a couple days." And the brother pauses and he goes, waits like a minute. And then he goes, "Yes, something's wrong." Like he was communing with him telepathically. And, and he comes over. One contrast from the movie is that in the movie, the lady tries to help Beverly and Elliot goes, "Don't touch him.
He's my brother."
He's my brother.
Like
But
does the mouth to mouth himself.
You got a good Jeremy
Which-
Irons.
In
Also-
the actual case, he refused to do the CPR. He was like, "I can't do it. It's my brother." Sorry, what were you going to say?
It's just so funny. Like, yeah, I mean, that's I also, it just kind of made me think of the, like the actual horror aspects of the movie and like the connection that, because when you said like the telepathic connection, that nightmare that he has.
Yes.
Where they're
that's the-
connected, where those Siamese twins would have been connected.
Yeah.
And then she like literally is like
Bites the thing
fighting
and
it
rips it
because
out.
it's like she's like
That's the
eating their
only-
relationship apart is like kind of how I interpret
Very
it.
Yoko Ono of her. Yeah, super not.
Less annoying.
But that was like the
Less
only
destructive.
visually, well,
That's the only typical Cronenberg body horror moment in the
yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Other
some
than-
visually disturbing stuff in the way the tools are.
Sure.
Like that stuff looks fucked up, and creepy. But yeah, that was the only bloody scene. Well, I guess the end, but
The very end, but that's like even that is really subtle. It's just like this like beautifully artistic like pouring of blood out from under him, and then it just shows him kind of in the
that
background
shot,
blurred.
probably my favorite shot. How it comes out of the crease of the chair.
Yeah.
I love shit like that. I thought that was
Yeah.
a really clever
It was good.
way to
But
show him bleeding out. Yeah.
It was really interesting because The Fly came out before this. The Fly was
Yes.
87.
Yes.
Okay.
Good call.
So
Not far before.
no, but it's like the production of The Fly. Like think about like how like the far stark contrast of like The Fly and the video, the just the special effects and all
Yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah.
the body horror and everything that's in
Well,
The
scanners.
Fly.
Scanners. I mean, he's
Yeah.
having dude's head fucking
Just
blown off in the first 2 minutes of the movie, dude. That was great.
This is him kind of being like, I want to make a more subtle movie that explores relationships more. And it's still gross and weird, but it is like, it's interesting. The Fly was a big hit.
Right.
It's interesting that this didn't do as well.
Came off the heels of The Fly, but it's also
Well,
just
People were seeing it
feel like
expecting more splatter.
Who's the famous artist, the filmmaker that says, I do one for me, one for them, and then one for me?
I don't know.
There's an actor that
Machine
says
Gun
that.
Kelly.
No, I fucking hope not. Let's never assume I'm quoting Machine Gun Kelly. Okay.
I don't know.
No, man, it's an actor, and then he says I do one for them and then one for me. They were quoting it. They were making fun of James Franco. James Franco does one for them and then 5 for nobody, but it was in his roast. But
A lot of bombs.
yeah. Well, and that kind of that would vibe for me. Like Fly was like an attempt at, and a successful attempt at like a fucking huge movie that was like creepy, but also appealed to the masses. And then he's like, ooh, now I get to make this seriously interesting. I mean, because what a fucking wild study in like the psychoanalysis of the medical field, of the whole vibe of what we're talking about. These sociopathic fucking that
End
is
of Twins, which I don't know how this hit for you. If you're worried that your boys will grow up to,
not for nothing, identical twins have a different vibe than fraternal twins.
Absolutely.
To me. My twins, they don't fucking like each other. Maybe this will change as they get older, but they're like they're not even.
well, they've been fighting for space since they were in the womb,
But they're not like they don't seem connected on any level. They're not really friends. They're always biting each other. They're always like, I feel like they're more like brothers that were born on the same day, but because they were die too, so they had their own.
they had their own separate everything.
Yeah, they were never,
There is some other gross stuff in the movie. Obviously, like you were saying, the shapes of the tools. It also has one of my all-time favorite cinematic puking scenes. When he's like when he's walking down the street and he's just he doesn't even like bend over or anything. He's just like which
Like on his way to his girlfriend's house.
please cut this in. Yeah, it's right before he sees the exhibit, but it's very like.
I think that's
When I've been really fucked up, that's how I do it.
Yeah, I think
not
that's
like,
getting at the
let
drug
me
addict
make
thing.
sure this doesn't get on me. I'm just like,
nope.
that.
I'm just trying to do
So
something,
disgusting.
and I'm gonna throw up by accident.
And then also the ending scene where he's disemboweling Elliot and he's pretending he's doing surgery or whatever. He's putting on these very dirty gloves.
Yeah,
Dude.
In this
did notice that,
disgusting, like the contrast between the at least supposed sterility of an operating room with him doing this surgery in this complete shithole. It looks like 9 incels have been living in this apartment for a fucking year. There's just trash everywhere. Beans everywhere. They're eating, there's just bowls of baked beans sitting around half eaten, which is also true to form. That's what happened in the real case of these brothers when they came to investigate their apartment. It's just trash. There's crap
it's
everywhere.
not beans though.
Well, I don't know about the beans. Let me control F beans.
Control
Beans.
F beans.
Doesn't say what they were eating on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the sugar thing
Actually,
is a real.
Can we pause for just a second? Like, you guys can carry on, but I'm gonna break the frame and take a piss.
Yeah.
Just go ahead.
I'm about to piss my pants.
No problem.
Keep it in. But yeah, there's I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to say about these folks.
Well, I mean, God, I feel like we could go on and on. What a wild, story to get a hold of and tell. I don't know. I kind of feel like organically the conversation about this, we've really kind of gone to a lot of good places. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to ask you while you were here.
Did you have any other notes that you wanted to cover,
I mean, I just
Evelyn?
I think we touched on most everything.
What was the other movie that you were talking about? There was two, right?
American Mary.
American Mary.
It's another weird medical
Yeah.
movie.
We'll have to check into that one.
Yeah.
So are you from Tampa?
I'm from Ohio.
Ohio. Wasn't Joe from Ohio too? Buckeyes. Are you like a college football fanatic too?
I'm also an Ohio State alumni.
Really?
I have a degree in fashion design.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Damn. Fucking degree over here. So when did you come to Florida?
When I came to rehab.
You came to Florida to go to rehab?
Yep, I came
to Turning Point?
Yep.
Okay, shout out Turning Point. We're going to be doing a lot of that over the years, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was in 14.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
April
man.
7th, 2014.
Things have gotten
Down.
so fucking weird up there. And you were like in the middle of your 20s or something like that.
I was 20. I don't know what's I'm horrible at math. I think I was 28
Yeah.
when I got sober.
28. Well, probably 25. No, it's 2014, not 14 years ago. It's
Yeah.
11 years ago.
Yeah,
So yeah.
So
Coming up on the end of your 20s. So there's this whole life before that.
yeah.
Isn't that weird how that works?
Oh, dude, I had so many lives. I've had so many different jobs.
Do you ever time things out in your past, not accounting for sobriety? Like, that was only like 3 years ago. And you're like, oh, wait, fuck, I've been sober for 10 years. So it was 13 years ago. Does that ever happen to you? It's happening to me less now that I'm getting into the higher numbers. I'll have 7 years on Wednesday,
Nice.
actually.
Nice.
But I
Congrats.
remember for a while, though, I would be like, yeah, man, that shit was like 2 years ago. And I'm like, oh, fuck, no, it was 5 years ago. I've been sober for 3 years. I would like, because it would like feel like two different lives. So
Time dilates.
Yeah, I would feel like, the clock sort of reset in 2018 or whatever. And it's wild to think of the different lives.
Yeah.
So you had a fashion degree and from Ohio State and you were using it?
Yeah, to bartend.
Yeah, okay. That sounds about right. That sounds a degree in just fashion design.
It was, yeah. So it was technically textiles and clothing with options and buying and merchandising and product development.
And doing shots.
All of the shots.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm really lucky to be able to do what I do today legally.
Yeah.
Sure.
And, yeah, I had 3 DUIs.
That's fucking incredible, man.
Some drunken disorderlies in there. It's truly a miracle that
I think that a lot too.
that my license says that I'm a safe driver.
Nice. Well, I think about that too. I am just a lowly plumber, but I actually have a lot to do with the business and sales, and I'm entrusted with a lot of money and a lot of capital, a lot of like social currency for the company. I make videos for the company, and I get into people's houses, and I definitely have burglary charges, and I definitely have like a really fucked up legal past that. It's funny. There was moments now in my life today where people say things about my character to me, about who I am to them. And I'm sure this has to happen to you too, where you're just like, you just have no fucking clue of like who I was for so long. But it's such a testament to like who I am now is a real thing. Like, cause sometimes I feel, you know, imposter syndrome or whatever, you know, I'm doing so many big things or whatever. And I have like the trust of these children and my wife and her family, you know, our spouse's families like look at us through a very specific lens too. And, you know, their truth about me is just as valid as my truth is, right? So like them seeing me in that light makes it a little bit more real for me to like believe that God has like changed me.
Damn
or
right.
whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it takes like some of the self-doubt out of it or whatever. But
it's really funny that happens every once in a while, but like my brothers offer me a beer when I'm back home.
oh yeah.
They just completely forget that that's like even a part of my history. They're like, hey, you want a beer? And I'm like, no thanks, man. And
Well,
they're like, oh my God. And they feel so bad. And I'm like, no, that's the greatest compliment you could ever give me.
That's fucking
that
crazy.
I am not
Rather than like
thought of as
hide the beer.
Right. It's like that I'm not the dumpster fire hot shit show on wheels right now. You know, like.
Well, you've almost crushed it so hard that like everyone's forgotten. You know, everyone's forgotten. Like, it's funny.
Life is way different these days.
Well, it's funny. The bar's gotten set. Like, you know, I'll say with me, with my mom specifically, which maybe isn't the healthiest relationship, but she, you know, has these expectations for me now. And it's like, God damn, I remember the time when you were happy that I didn't have to call you for rent money. You know what I mean? But like now it's like, you know, what do you mean you don't have 6 months of, you know, expenses in a high yield savings account? It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know, I'm getting there. God damn it. I will have my mother's approval one day.
One day.
Yeah.
I believe it.
I think this went really well.
Yeah, this was great.
I fucking super dig you and all your shit. And
Thanks, man.
I'm so glad that you came. And
I didn't get to do much British. Let me do just one quote from the movie.
please, let's do 5 minutes.
You've been fucking a mutant.
That is a really good, that's a fucking really good Jeremy Irons.
What have you been having intercourse with?
Yeah, that's another scene. That's that scene after he's hurting the woman. He goes, I had a patient who was having intercourse with a Labrador.
Oh yeah.
Labrador Retriever.
Labrador Retriever. He's really great at playing high. Like he's really kind of nodding in and out like that.
I think he maybe had some experience.
Yeah, dude, that very final scene where he's just literally just like dissociated from what he had just done, disemboweling Ellie.
Yeah,
and
he's
he
like,
just
Ellie.
That is creepy.
Yeah.
Ellie, it's haunting, and it just lingers on it for so long.
Yeah.
But they do such a good job, like portraying. It's like, you know, we've seen this all the time. We see like movies that portray like AA meetings or whatever, and I'm like, that's not how an AA meeting is at all. Movies never portray them right, dude. These guys got addiction.
Yeah.
And somebody like tweaking so real good.
When he shoots up and then he goes, his eyes kind of bug out, which
And she's like, I gotta quit this job. I can't be dealing with this or whatever. And he's like, that's cool.
bet, okay.
Sounds about right, dude.
Yeah.
Are you done talking? Because I gotta get on with being high.
Yes, I am done talking. Yeah, any final notes?
I don't think so. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming. This was spectacular.
Adios, neighbors.
I love playing two-hand touch, eating way too much, watching my team win with the Twins. I love quarterbacks eating dirt, pom-poms and short skirts.